Do you even need it? Do you actually need to run a sale? My question to you is this. Are your customers waiting for you to have a sale for them to buy from you? If the answer is yes, then if you didn't run sales, would they never come? A lot of people get really addicted to the cash flow of a big sale. The problem is immediately after the cash flow of that big sale, you have a giant deficit in daily revenue. So is it really worth it? Do you actually need it right now? My argument is, and in my experience, the answer to that question is rarely ever yes. Now remember the history of sales. The reason that discounting during these holidays started was to remove inventory from the shelves at traditional retailers. Businesses that run on basically renting space and then making a daily revenue from the square footage of that space. And when products are sitting on that shelf, preventing revenue growth from the square footage of that, from that space that they're renting, what we call profit per square foot or revenue per square foot, when that is impeded, it becomes a business necessity to move that inventory, because ultimately retail is about inventory turnover. Now, if you're running an e-commerce store and you don't necessarily have the same unit economics of overhead and inventory and rent and all of those things at the same level of ultimately looking at profit per square foot of your retail location, is it actually something that you need to chase? Because ultimately you're trying to play a game against people with an unfair advantage to begin with, and that traditional retailers honestly don't need to make the money. Their markup is probably a lot higher than yours is, and they're dealing in much greater volume than you are. Plus, you have an unfair advantage in the marketplace because you don't have the same operational cost that they do. So trying to fight a battle that you're probably going to lose, that you don't actually need to engage in, that could potentially be far more harmful than positive, to me, feels like maybe a bad idea. Far more often, not running a sale is more profitable than running a sale, because yes, you're going to make less sales. Yes, you're going to see less revenue in those days than you would have otherwise, but you might make more margin on every single product that you sell. And ultimately, what's most important is margin per customer journey. Far, far more than cash flow on a specific day that's positive, knowing almost at a fact, inarguably, that your cash flow the day after is going to be a lot worse. Is it really worth it to make 3 really good days to know that the next 10 days are going to suffer, and that your margin per customer journey is less on every customer that you brought in during that time, or every customer that you're training to wait for those sales? And you might say to yourself, well, people aren't waiting for all of that stuff. That's not really me. But I'd ask you, how do you behave when you deal with things? If you know a sale is coming in a week, do you buy today full price? You might say yes, but I'm willing to bet there's more than a few of you that would say no. If I know that I can save $50, $100, $1,000 by just waiting a couple of days, why would you pay full price unless timeliness is a necessity? And it might very well be a necessity. But the necessity of timeliness is the minority of the user use case when it comes to making purchases in the open market. Finances and needs tend to be way less focused on time as it does on overall price. Most people are willing to wait 3 or 4 days to save a couple bucks. So my point here is, do you actually even need the sale? There's even an argument to be said, and I've seen this happen at scale, where you don't discount. And you know that you don't discount. And that actually poisons the well for all of your competitors while maintaining a pretty consistent cash flow for your business. Also, if you know there's a big sale happening and every other marketer on the street is spending through the nose to spend more money to acquire customers at a lower margin and pull their sales forward, ultimately hurting their bottom line, maybe that's an opportunity where you don't need to advertise at all. It might be more profitable for you to not run paid acquisition media during a sales period for your competitors, to not acquire customers at a lower margin, to not train your customers to devalue your brand, to not bring in people who are worth less than you. Because ultimately that means you're making more money on every customer and you've reduced your cost of operation. Far more often, not spending bad money is better for business than doing everything you can to acquire any revenue possible. Because especially in direct consumer advertising, one of the biggest unfair advantages you have over a traditional retailer is operational cost and markup margin. And that's one of the beauties of direct consumer. My retail is very, very difficult for brands to get into. So ultimately, we have to ask ourselves, do we even need to run a sale? Or can we use this time for PR and understanding? And hey, look, maybe we'll lose some volume of sales during this period of time. But if this sale isn't an anchor point to our business, is it really worth discounting our products and giving up overall revenue to acquire more customers? Now, there's obviously situations where that might not be true, where it might absolutely be worth it. Maybe you're in the flower delivery business and you want to make sure that on Mother's Day and Valentine's Day, you are making your sales 100%. And generally, those businesses have higher markups during the year, and they just go down to their daily operational costs during sales times. And then they mark up the rest of the year to afford it. Just like we see sometimes with Black Friday, where, okay, that TV's $300, it's $300, it's $300. The month before Black Friday, it goes to $400, and then they mark it down 30% or something along those lines. Very much in the same way, we will see that happen with traditional seasonal products that do, in fact, rely on these types of more typical sales flows.